Well, maybe turns got big enough fast enough. Yeah, this was a fatiguing half turn. The French Girard beginning to deploy here and starting to fight. The French did almost no damage with their firepower throughout the turn, but and you can see they made some cav charges to clear the area down here. Grouchy's trying to push over across the stream here so that he can put pressure on the Prussian right. There's kind of a hole there in between the two Prussian forces at this point because I haven't been able to really build anything here. I have a cav protecting that, but that one cav isn't enough to stop all of Grouchy. Well, that's not all of them, but 3 units or whatever. Over here, things went very poorly. Vandamme is trying to figure out how to crack this nut here, and it's just not working. My cav came shooting across, charging the Prussian cav. It cleared it out of the area, which is pretty cool. And I managed to charge across the stream here, knocked out one unit, ran into another, and then fell back. I've cleared this. I should have a charged marker so I don't charge again. He succeeded in his in his rally from voluntarily blowing. Remember, you can rally right away from that. Over here, the French have been cleared out on their side of the turn, which means the Prussians, although their cav got chased away, are going to yeah, that's my morning helicopter. I can't sleep anymore, so I'm up for it. Hey, there it is. This position looks completely untenable, and it looks to me like the Prussians are going to get a nasty outflank coming in on Vandamme if he doesn't do anything. Napoleon has given orders to the Guard, but they're not going to help Vandamme. They're heading up to Ligny, so things do not look terribly good for our Emperor. Ney over here. So I made a mistake, I think, and placed this artillery not in the most forward hex I could have. I think I would have been allowed to place it up here where it more dominated the road. And the French have kind of skimmed along just out of range of opportunity fire of it. That makes it a little bit easier to kind of perform an outflank over here. I've got Orange, whom I can throw against the rear there, perhaps, even if he doesn't have orders for it. I should be getting some of the Anglo-Dutch army coming on this turn, but they got a long way to walk to get into the position. The Grand Pierrepoint. When I see, I've played Ney versus Wellington a couple of times, which is also Cotter-Bras. And I don't remember the French ever having this kind of advantage where they could just, where there really was very little in the way of the Anglo-Dutch army. It may start at a later point in the game after Ney has delayed some more. All right, and now I have to figure out what to do with the Prussians. And you can see they're not escaping unscathed. They have a lot of disordered units as well. It's just the French attack over here is largely falling apart. Allied turn being primarily defensive was a little bit easier, but man, the French are getting hosed here. Over here, Thielmann is holding his own. Now, he's got this danger of the gap. There's a lot of troops here under Ziethen that, you know, maybe I could swing a little bit to the east, but it's just they're not able to hold up against cav, and that's the real problem. I just don't have enough cav over on this flank. I'm so overwhelmed by the French cav that if I can figure out how to use them effectively, I should be able to really undermine that position, but across the board. But that's not happening right now. The French cav's kind of mulling around, although I am pushing through here, which might work. Over here, though, on the Prussian right, man, Vandamme is just hosed. He's gotten driven back here. He's being knocked off the hill. We're going to have a line running basically across here, and I don't know what can be done about it. I think the French attack has been largely foiled there. Yes, there are retreating Prussians, but that's no big deal. They're routing Prussians. Those guys are basically gone. I have to decide what that means. So in your normal battle, if something routes off the map or whatever, or is disordered off the map, it's just gone. But I'm not sure that there shouldn't be a possibility of recovery of some sort or another over a 3-day battle. I have to contemplate that a little bit. There's no rules about it. Since they're routing, I'll probably have them ineffective for the rest of the game if nobody rallies them. But disordered units I am a little less certain about. Here we have Wellington's forces beginning to push forward. Wellington himself on the board, and the Brits have kind of thrown some forces forward. Well, the Dutch have thrown some forces forward to try to hold over here. A big fortified location there. That does not look like it's going to move anywhere, which is fairly historical, I suppose. That was always one of my problems with the Ney versus Wellington Cadabra. It felt so inconclusive, usually, which is the battle, so that may have been one of the factors. There's a lot of, it's using the Wellington's victory system over there, and there's a lot of detail and effort and work, and it's got this weird, the same firing system as Monmouth has, which I find really kind of, you're kind of doing simultaneous fire, and it doesn't work out that way. Basically, one side starts at one end, the other side starts at the other end, and basically half the board, one side's going first, the other half, the other side's going first. And it's just very weird and mechanically clumsy, and I never much liked how the system played out. Of course, I had to go out and buy Wellington's victory, mainly because there was nothing on Waterloo. I'm probably going to regret my Wellington's victory purchase, because this and maybe the Berg game over there look like better options for Waterloo for me. Anyhow, it does not look good for the Emperor, and I, often misjudge things, so, maybe things will turn. I know if VlE and his 4th Corps were here, the French would just be hosed. But at least we have kind of a parity of troops. Maybe the orders I have that are going to hit more on that divide are going to break this battle open a little bit in favor of the French. We'll see. French side of the 230 turn, I guess, and they're making some significant progress. First of all, they swept through here, ignoring the Grand Pierrepont, and they're putting themselves up against whatever this is, Gemini Court. No idea how to pronounce it without looking at it. And it's upside down, man. Cav charge went up here, took out the guns up there, and the unit in the way brushed the units that were up there away. So now just the fortified unit itself is facing them. And that's pretty big, because this had the potential of dominating that region. I should have had the artillery here, but it's more exposed there, and it would have been easier to pull this off, I think, than in some ways than slipping around the back the way I did. Over here, we've pretty much isolated the fortification here, driving everything off, and Orange is gone. He's dead. So that's like 10 points or something in most scenarios, I think. Over here, Van Damme is beginning to withdraw. He's seeing some rallying going on over on his extreme left. And he may be able to get out of there in fairly good order, because, honestly, the Prussians have taken some losses, and are they really going to launch a counterattack coming out of their defensive terrain? They'll probably get shattered if they try that. Over here, the French are approaching kind of cautiously. They've pulled some of the cav back, going for an outflank, for whatever that's worth. This village kind of anchors the Prussian line in a way that there's not much I can do about it. Grouchy sent some of his cav across here, one of his divisions. He probably ought to give them their own specific orders. But, yeah, he basically has one division here, I think. These guys chased off the Prussian Lights, who didn't want to stick around and fight. And then that means I've got units over here threatening this. It looks like this whole line is going to collapse. As long as I'm careful and don't launch too much of an attack. I have so much artillery facing them. I'm knocking their guns out, you know, with this unit here, for example. Then over here, we're shielding our cav with a unit in Ligny, and we've got the guard coming in, which is planning on hitting Ligny and finishing off the rest of the line. I think there's a pretty good chance the Prussians are very hosed here. And again, you know, we're doing quite well at Cadabra, simply because I think the game allows you to get a jump start on the battle. I'm not positive. Certainly, it looks much easier to launch this attack than it is in the Ney versus Wellington game, the old SPI game. So I don't know. You know, I don't know when that game starts in terms of time. The Allies' Cadabra looks pretty bad. And I'm not quite sure of if there's anything I can do there, really. I've got reinforcements coming in. I get a long train of them eventually. I should be able to stabilize it at least, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold Cadabra, given that I have nothing in the French's way at this point. Although I do have a couple of units, and we'll see. But over here, things are more interesting. So these guys are frozen in terms of they gave up their orders, and I can't see anything much that I can do unless it's to pull out, to try to get around the cav and onto this hill or something. I'm not quite sure what to do there. And over here, I have an interesting choice because that third corps, which is the Oman, is it's got orders to keep pushing, which normally you wouldn't expect in this situation. I don't know why it was so aggressive, but I'm also kind of fatigued. Of course, so is Van Damme. Van Damme's more fatigued. Do I want to give him that needed rest? Or do I want to push further? And that's a really hard call because the French out-cav me back here. They've got a couple of big cav units. I do not. I have a lighter one here, a single unit there. And I think that's it. Any other cav I have is, I got one back here that I could, that may be the other command though. It's hard to tell whose command is whose in this. So that's 16. That's probably First Corps, Zethan. Or Zethan, I don't know. Zethan. Always forget my eyes and knees. I've got Blucher with him so I could start getting him moving, but I don't really like the answers that I've got right now, you know? It feels like the French are really going to degrade my position here if I don't do something. And I don't know what. We'll see. Well, Tillman, on his own initiative, is deciding to try to pull back up here to this hill. That's going to be tough. Remember, this is not a game that's friendly to people trying to withdraw. It's never worked for me very well, but we'll see if he can get out of there. He's probably better off holding the line and getting smashed that way, but it feels very 7 Years' War in that sense. Over here, some rallying took place. Over here, yeah, I positioned people thinking I could rally some of these. I couldn't. The cav busted the one infantry that was left. I'm sorry. Yeah, some disordered infantry got routed back here. The infantry moving forward chased the French cav back. We got a square here with artillery right on it, which can't be pleasant for them. Not a lot of losses yet, and they're going to try to get out of there, obviously, but that's not pleasant at all. Over here, you got some of Wellington's troops beginning to come in, Prussians routing, and then some cav here. So we're going to contest at Katara, but and we have Orange's replacement, the famous Prince of Puce. Getting complicated enough, just one player turn, that I'm having trouble picturing describing what's going on. I can get it in broad strokes, but French pushed forward, drove back this cav actually, and it ended up disordering when it tried to do a voluntary retreat. Both the strong points are still held by the Allies. I wanted to touch on something that I'm doing. So I had mentioned I do these, hey, you've got a minimum of 1 firepower if you're firing anything into something. And that kind of plays off of the artillery has this minimum of 1 firepower, but that's per unit, as far as I can tell. Regular units, I'm kind of cheating the game, but I'm not doing anything really major here. So, you know, if I have all these guys here, none of these would generate a firepower because they're just skirmishers. I'm out of counters for skirmishers, including the extra counters. I don't want to dig out of another game. I started to think about that, but so I'm just using little markers because there's so many French on the board attacking. And instead of that, you know, adding up to 0 and not getting a roll, I let it add up to 1. Just 1 unit would have that 1 as well. It gives me some chance of casualties and some chance of dislodging something, even with a light engagement. Just because I believe that pretty much any situation is random enough that it's possible to dislodge something. You might question the skirmishers, but hey, whatever. All right, over here, French withdrew that square, but not happily. It went running. And you got those routing and disordered units continuing on their way. Van Damme and Napoleon probably want to consider going in and trying to pull their bacon out. Over here, we have Girard launching an attack heavily across the stream here. The Cav Grouchy, it's at the max range, kind of. He's got his Cav 2 extended. He probably really needs to detach those guys to do specific jobs, but that's not easy to do. I would have to roll morale, and they'd have to think about it for a while no matter what. This is a Girard Cav, and it charged. It was in command radius when it charged. It's not anymore, but that's okay. It does mean, though, that had I succeeded, I wouldn't really be able to take advantage of that charge, trying to drive the Prussian Cav away. Instead, all that happened was I just kind of bounced on them, and hey, whatever. But the biggie is the Imperial Guard came marching in, and we took one key area. Man, these guys are good. Here they are. So this is a 4 multiplier for their melee capability. They're not all this good, but this is, you know, like the old Grenadier Guard. A 4 multiplier, but they're in column. So that goes up +1, so they go to a 5 multiplier for attacking. And those fortified farms aren't any better than villages. Well, they're not much better than village spaces. So they only produced a -2, so I get a 3 times multiplier, which is still like a normal unit in column would be. So that's pretty damn good. But we didn't punch forward any further here. We didn't even try here. And here we're just trading shots with the artillery. We're pretty good at firing too. I don't like committing the guard. And they've taken some losses now, and that's not something I want to have happen. They can't reach demoralization or desperation morale, but if they break, bad things happen, and I don't know quite what those bad things are, but I don't want them to happen because I think I lose the battle if that happens. So that's half the turn, and it took me, I don't know, at least an hour to do. And there's a lot of units that aren't on the board yet, so ouch. Well, there's a lot of effort in the cav charges and trying to figure out how to launch an attack, etc. But honestly, the defense is fairly easy if you're not trying to withdraw. Anyway, it took a lot less time, maybe 10-15 minutes to do the allied turn. What we have, other than some routing units causing problems here, is Brunswick coming in, more and more forces conglomerating near Cadabra, or heading towards it. So it's not going to be a pushover there. And meanwhile, Orange's stuff is still holding out there. No real reason. I don't have to try to get these guys out of there or anything. They're allowed to cower in the woods, actually. Kind of a nice factor. What's his name? Pict or whatever. I don't know who he is. Pirch has launched a further attack forward. Now this is under his current orders. It's just, I moved forward last turn. This turn I'm moving more aggressively and actually trying to take this hill, hitting Van Damme's stuff, trying to knock it off. My feeling here is, hey look, this isn't going to hold. And that's going to, the Ligny line is going to fall apart too. So if I can create a north-south axis line, then maybe that'll work, The problem, of course, with that is Wavre might end up as French territory a little too quickly. And that could be very, very bad because the 4th Corps is over on this side of things. So I would end up with one good Prussian corps divided up from the battered rest of the army. Anything else exciting? Pretty much holding here. Over here I'm trying to extricate these units, and because the French weren't pressing too hard, it's not that difficult. I'm just backing away and throwing out some skirmishers. You can always do this, but I'm not taking as much opportunity fire, except from this nasty row of cannons up here that's kind of problematic, actually. Not much I can do here. I'm afraid to leave. There's just the guard gets too much firepower against me, so I'm just kind of holding there. A little bit of rallying going on, but not much, and we're done for the night. Not looking forward to doing the French turns. They're really kind of a nightmare. The reason for it is, unlike the ACW games, where everything's very simple, hey, I just march forward and fight, fire. Here, you've got the cav, and the cav have a significant effect. And you've got to worry about, if I launch, my infantry forward, I have to make sure I've got the enemy cav cleared, or else he'll be able to, blow my troops up as they're coming forward. And then, okay, well, if that's the case, I have to figure out exactly the geometry of any given attack with the cavalry. It's a painful process. And then there's also a painful process involving the skirmishers, which doesn't really have much effect, but it's basically you have to pulse your movement to make sure, oh wait, I got to knock out that skirmisher with one of my skirmishers, and then I'll be able to freely advance against that next skirmisher. And it gets very complicated very quickly. The units don't maneuver very well. I'm getting more comfortable with it, but I don't think it's going to ever be particularly quick. Now, one of the things I liked about the NBS was it played fairly fast, but mainly at the cost of going into the details of the maneuver. Like I said, I think the units are a little too rigid in this, but I think they were a lot too loose in systems that, don't really handle, say, facing during movement and stuff like that. By which I mean you have to pay costs to change your facing continuously. And that's what really gets in the way and makes it a little bit trickier than what I'm used to. A lot of my time is spent thinking, but it's not necessarily spent thinking about the big things. Although, honestly, I have to say a lot of my time is spent thinking about the big things like, you know, yes, there's a significant amount in sort of this mental mechanical type aspect, but there's also the, do I dare move forward here? You know, like with this, I had to really kind of agonize about that. And I've had a number of those decisions where there's a potentially high cost, and it's not just ramming a couple of infantry lines against each other. You have the same thing in the musket and pike stuff. Really, the American Civil War is just such a strange situation because of the dominance of the rifle. That era means that cavalry and artillery, to a lesser extent, just aren't that important. And here, they're really important, and you really have to kind of focus on how you want to deploy your troops on a fairly small scale, even though there's not a lot of detail in a lot of the other stuff. I don't really remember NBS too much. I haven't played any of them in a while. I do know that it was always more difficult, although the 3.0 version streamlined a lot of it. But it was always more difficult to figure out how exactly you wanted to move your troops. You were much more likely to want to melee in that system than you were in the CWB, which of course makes sense. Less firepower, less pain for coming in for the melee, and you can have more effect with the shock attacks. And we're definitely seeing that here. I just it just takes me some getting used to. If you've got more of a minis background, this is going to work better for you, just like Labatt will, or anything that goes into those maneuver details and more effort. And yeah, I'm babbling, but I think I'm giving up on that hair treatment thing. It's dehydrating me, and I'm feeling drunk all the time. Okay, French side of what, the 3:30 turn has just ended. And the French are doing a pretty good job over here. Some retreat throughs caused additional disruption and problems. The troops that are going to be funneling up are going to not really even make up for what we're kind of losing at this point. I may have to pull Wellington off the line. Not that I particularly want him on the line, but he can't really get hurt there easily. To try to rally some of these, but they can't do it this turn, so he's kind of serving a purpose there. I do not want to leave him there if it starts to look like it's going to get surrounded, though, because, well, even though these guys have 0 firepower, because of the way I play it, I allow them to have a total of 1. And they managed to get a lucky shot in here. I was planning on bringing some artillery up or something. I don't know. I don't know if I ever had any possible resolution there. And then again, because I'm playing with the option that allows you to retreat, that allows units to fail their morale, but they get a big bonus when in a fortified position or a town. The Brits, well, actually the Dutch pulled out of there. Over here, we tried to set up a little bit of a defensive line for our left flank. Von Damme's very tired corps does not really want to move. We did get some rallies back here. Napoleon's a rally monster. Van Damme did not succeed. I got units routing. There's nothing I can do about them. They're going to leave the board before I can do anything. Of course, the base rules are, hey, a unit's routed, it's gone. And I play it more for the disruption effect than for any real ability to recall those units. It's usually they're running so hard that unless the rest of your army's running with them, you probably don't have somebody to rally them anyway. So the net effect is usually the same, but every now and then this creates some disruption. For example, here, retreats had to go around the routed units. I allowed it only because this was just skirmishers. If that was a formed unit, I don't know if I'd allow that. But they had to go around the routed units in order to avoid routing themselves. Over here, Girard mainly holding the line and not moving. Took some rest. Now there, if I was using just the chits as my orders, I don't think I'd allow this, but with written orders, I don't feel like it's so much about, oh, I'm in this status, I'm in this status. It's I'm trying to follow those orders, and when I follow orders, I do not believe that you have to push forward at all times. I believe that attacks should be allowed to pause. These are half-hour turns. There's significant room for taking it easy on an attack. Same feelings I have with CWB. The Guard massed artillery fire actually was pretty ineffective along this side, but we got the, again, firepower routing someone out of a village or disordering someone out of a village. That option really makes this terrain more easy to attack. And you know, if you consider Waterloo, man, nobody in their right mind would attack, or at Ligny, nobody in their right mind would attack these locations if the enemy couldn't be disordered out of them. They're just too strong. They're like castles or something, you know, not just these fortified ones, just villages. So there's a reason why I use that option, and it is an official option actually, as opposed to some of the stuff I add on. Like there was some kind of earthquake at Cotter Bra. I was wondering what happened here. I heard something flutter. Found, I don't know, a piece of paper on the floor that had blown away. I don't think it knocked things. I think what happened was the whole damn map got lifted and things slid. I don't know how I'm going to recuperate this. I had paper clips on here. That seems to be... I think I had one here. That seems to be gone. Maybe I didn't have one there. I don't know. I have really no fucking clue how to restructure this because everything seems to have slid down. And I'm pushing things forward. I know Ney was up here and this had been rallied. I got these numbers here. One of them was on this unit. One of them's on this unit. This was turn 5, so I'll put the 5 over here. This is probably a 4 from here, but I just don't know because I know there were some French disordered units too. This guy I think is a 4 here, and I'll try to figure out what the hell's where. I know there were a number of units up here facing this, and they just seem to have slid all the way down. Oh well. If I wasn't videoing this, I would kind of say, hell with it, you know, whatever. It doesn't really matter too much how accurate I get it. I'll get it close. Nobody's going to bitch too much. I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't have your window open. Yeah, well, I like air. And of course, plexi would resolve this issue. My rocks are going to help. I don't know how well, but we'll see. But because of the video, the very reason that I feel I have to do this, I actually have a perfect record, and it's kind of cool. I think if I was using my any of my other cameras that I've used, including the newer one, I wouldn't have had as clear a shot, but I can really see. I'm not certain I got everything exact, but man, this I was able to get stills of this whole situation, and I think I've got it like 90% correct, okay? You know, I'm not sure I have the right cav unit here. These two might be switched. I'm not positive about anything in particular, and maybe I made some other errors, you know, just in terms of noticing, but I got a really nice record of what's going on, which is awesome. 4 p.m. things are looking bad for the Allies across the board. Thielman is continuing to pull out. Now he's able to disengage much better than I'm used to because he's doing it from a slight distance, and it's working pretty well actually, although he lost some artillery back here that he had to abandon. Actually did a cav attack over here and wiped out a French cav. Took losses ourselves over here. Pritch, I think is his name, is continuing his attack on Van Damme. It's going fine, but the problem is Zielman or whatever over here, Zeton is collapsing over on his Ligny side, and the stuff over here can't hold if the Guard starts sweeping across that hill. So I'm gonna have to pull out of there pretty quick, and remember it's kind of slow to get your orders activated, so you can lose a lot of units as you're trying to get your command moving. So I got to be real careful. All depends on what the Guard's orders are, and I know what they are as the French, and things look real good for me over here. On Carabas, not much has changed. The Dutch have pulled out of the Grand Pierrepoint area up here. But these other fortified farms are holding out pretty well. Basically, I've got them sieged, and the French and the Allied units are each rolling. If either one gets a 6, they do a point of damage to something. That's about the end of it. We've got more units here. I think these are Dutch. They look gray. No, these are Brunswick, so they're Germans of some sort. And some cav to replace Uxbridge's one unit that, I don't know if I should be tracking it as Uxbridge, but eventually it'll get cataloged under his command, so it's probably part of Wellington's command officially. I just don't see a point, and we've got a whole bunch more cav coming, so I want to make sure that I understand if that gets assigned elsewhere. It's sort of attached to Wellington, but I'm keeping track of it as though it's Uxbridge for the fatigue levels. But this doesn't look like something I'm going to be able to break. And what's back here is just in trouble, right? Although these guys actually rallied, so I may be able to throw them back, maybe get them back here or something. Somewhere where they can hold together. They don't really have any orders, so I don't know what they can do. They should be able to call for a general retreat for a certain degree. But there's nothing in the game that just allows you to do that, so I'll probably be rolling for initiative and see if I can get them out of there. Guess that's about it. Always do this. Just as I turn off my video, I realize, oh yeah, there was something I wanted to talk about, but I held off because I do all the video at once, and then I end up coming back on anyway. But at least I'm at the end of a turn. So the colors and the appearance of this map, I think they're really good under natural lighting. But I have to tell you, when I saw them at Consim World, they looked really washed out. And this is a matter of those huge fluorescent lights in a convention hall. This is probably, to me, the most attractive of the maps. I think I like these better than the Spanish ones. It's like people who are watching these playthroughs, man, they're not, there's a darkness to these, which probably people were complaining about how washed out this stuff looked, or maybe it's just Legion's own desires. But I find paler colors and kind of washed out maps look great, usually. When I'm playing them. But then I went to the convention, and it was actually something that dissuaded me from buying the game. I thought about buying it back when Gronyard Games was demoing it, and I was like, there's a lot about the system I like, but then there's the maps. Well, I'm glad I got around to picking it up, because so far, this is far and away my favorite of all the games in the series that I've seen. I don't know. In terms of the rules, I'm using the Cadabra rule, the España rules, so I don't know how much difference there is there. But in terms of the presentation of the map and the pieces, I'm finding this one a little bit easier. Honestly, the old ones, I think the pieces were just a little teeny bit easier to read. For my bad eyes. I think the hardest to read, though, are the newest ones. And then I like the muted colors on the map a lot. And of course, it's Waterloo, right? I mean, if you compare it to my other battles that I have, Friedland's an interesting battle. Ekmal is a neat situation. The Spanish ones, they're not bad battles. It's just none of them have that weight of history that Waterloo has. And that's just so important to me. I mean, there's a reason I love Gettysburg, right? But actually, with Gettysburg, as opposed to Waterloo, this map, the terrain at Waterloo is a little crowded. Oh, that reminds me of something else. Compared to what you kind of have laid out at Gettysburg. Gettysburg is sort of the perfect battlefield for me. But one thing I was thinking, I had to look up the line of sight rules, because in general they're pretty self-explanatory, but basically if there's anything blocking, it blocks. Maybe some scenarios have specific rules, especially the final scenario over in Spain. Whichever one that is. Sauron, I think. Where there's really great heights. But for the most part, it just works. You know, this town, it probably blocks what's behind it in the hill. You probably can't shoot your artillery effectively there. And instead of adding all kind of complex rules of, well, you'd add a minus like you would. Hey, if you want to add that kind of stuff, go ahead. The one place where it's kind of iffy is if you're down here and there's a unit here. If you're up on this hill, there's a unit here and there's stuff down here. You probably can see these guys and shoot over your unit's head. And, you know, but again, in the interest of simplicity, it's just the simplest LOS rolls in the world. Hey, it works pretty well. I was going to commit my guard-like cav to charge, but luckily I looked up the rule on them because I don't think I could have. They're not near nay, whatever. And they have to withdraw off the edge of the map this turn. So they'll be going to rejoin the rest of the guard, which looks like they actually will have maybe a pathway to get there. I'm not quite sure what rules will apply to them trying to rejoin, whether or not they're going to be allowed to, you know, do any charges or anything to try to clear that way. Here, Milad or whatever, his cav managed to bust away the Prussian cav and smack regular infantry unit. He actually lost some points on the infantry. Likewise, over here we made cav charges, tried to neutralize this cav, didn't really work. I managed to get this unit into square, took some bombardment. Had to blow my own cav, in order to get away from the square and from cluttering up the field. That didn't recover, so you can see it got kind of far away. Largely, the French did nothing over on Ligny other than the cav charges. They strengthened their position over here, and you can see there's still gaps and such not, but it doesn't look like they're in a state of collapse. Well, maybe some of their units are gone as part of the problem. We got our losses over here, and you can see there's more French units missing than there are Prussian units missing, but the Prussians have lost the battle as far as I'm concerned. The guard chose not to move forward, just staying in its position, doing some bombardment. We're trying to knock this out before we push on, but it's almost a hopeless job. Kind of like the Huguenot will be. Girard chose not to go forward as well, taking a rest turn again. I allowed him to, turn, the idea of one or two units turning or throwing out some skirmishers or something like that, counting as a fatigue action, that goes beyond my suspension of disbelief. And over here, well, the French actually marched in and hit Wellington himself from the rear, but that doesn't do very much. The only real effect of rear attacks is a morale effect, and Wellington's there, and those are good old British guns and units, and they just kind of shrugged it off. But this is looking problematic, and I'm going to have to try to drive that away. He's actually in a risky place to do that, and it was probably a dumb move. Otherwise, many of the French units have recovered, actually. Yeah, I got my good old doctor. He healed one strength point. That unit can never be healed that way again. There's no limitation to how many points you can recover by stacking a leader with a unit and not moving and such not, but I haven't really been thinking too hard about that. Usually my leaders are being used. It's only really the French who have a free leader. The only person I can think of who's free is Girard back here, who tried to rally a unit, and I guess it didn't work. I don't know if I even rolled for it. I mean, I don't think I noticed it. I think I was concentrating on other things, and it looks a little covered. So that's because he's where he routed to a while back. So that's probably an 8 natural. Yeah, that's going to work. Even if it's not, it's only down 1 due to fatigue at most. So there's another unit recovered. This is not the French army I'm used to in some of the other scenarios. There are good units, but there's a lot of stuff that's pretty mediocre here, which is fitting for the time period. French side of their turn, they were able to, the cav charge that was here was able to hit a Prussian cav that was a little out of position. That's what we have coming up here. There's a Prussian cav that's going to be able to hit one of these French cav that's just a little out of position. There's no reason this guy's facing this way, but he is. And therefore, there's nothing to cover this hex, and I can charge right in there. And, well, you know, it's going to happen. There's shit like that that just happens in this game. I see things like this a lot less in the other designs that I've played. But I know when I've played minis, I've often ended up, you know, just a little out of position in a way that, oh gosh, I can't do that. You know, I can't do what I thought I could do. I'm not protected the way I thought I was. And this game is harsh in that same sort of way. Gerard not really pursuing. Thielman can kind of get away, but he's getting still plinked by these guns up here. Oh, I forgot to take care of that cav attack. I'll do that in a moment. I just want to talk about other stuff. Over here, who's Ethan? His force is not really in great shape. He's trying to pull them back away from the guard because they're going to come surging, he thinks. He's not sure. Over here, Perch. His advance didn't do much. I forgot to fire this too. Okay, let's do that because I won't remember that. That's 3 going into there. Let me make sure that thing's not weakened. 45. No, that's full strength. Forgetting all kind of things. Now that cav didn't get a chance to react at all because those guns were placed there, but they unlimbered. I think maybe that should give you a reaction, but I haven't been giving for such. Okay. So we actually don't hit. Over here, this is where things got exciting. So those Brunswick troops moved up, got in line. Some of them got pushed back. Over here, the Duke of Orange, or Prince of Orange's replacement. Prince, I'm not sure. May just be the Duke. I don't remember my Napoleonic nobility in the Netherlands. He tried to get an initiative, failed. He's got a 2-point morale penalty for the next turn. But Wellington sent off some orders to him anyhow. Get the hell out of there, which should seem obvious, but there's nothing like emergency corps retreat from CWB in this game. So, the exciting thing though is the shots coming in on this artillery here. You see the lack of Wellington. Well, he's in the dead pile. And I'm not quite sure who's going to replace him. Right now, I got no one except, you know, I got his replacement corps commander who will come in. And then the possibility is whoever this guy is as well. We don't have guys like Hill or anything like that on the board yet. Won't for a while. Uxbridge probably will, but that's going to mean that the Anglo-Allied army just has no leadership. This battle as a whole, this campaign is pretty much over, I think, without Wellington there. You still have Blucher. He might become overall commander at Waterloo for all I know. So we're not sure what the Prussians are going to do. We're still continuing with this foolish attack. I think we've just got to get out of here. And the question with getting out of here is kind of tough because we basically have 2 routes out. We can go the Wavre route, which allows us to put kind of a roadblock at Wavre and slow the French down if they try to go that way. There's no equivalent running here, and there should be. There's plenty of room and good enough terrain that if a delaying action was necessary, it could have been accomplished. But, you know, and there's nothing in between Waterloo and Ligny, and I don't think there's any way to just transfer across there, which may have something to do with the dial. I don't know. But it doesn't look like it should. The dial looks like it's far off to that direction. Okay. And that's kind of the difficulty here is I can't just go flooding off the map, and if I only send like this unit off that way, that's not enough to stop a French move coming towards Waterloo. So I've got to kind of extricate at least another core, something in decent shape in that direction. I could try to fight my way through Quatre Bras, but that doesn't look terribly useful either. I think I think Napoleon may be winning the victory he wanted to here. In the 430 turn, I realize again, I'm just really bad with cavalry. The Prussians, I don't know why they're here with the Brunswick cav, but sort of trying to protect this gap or whatever, but it exposed their rear, and Kellerman just slipped right up and hit it. Nothing I can do. That's not entirely true. I can retreat. I can withdraw. But then Kellerman's not stopped in his charge. I don't know whether to sacrifice the cav. He gets an attack through if the cav beats it anyway. At least it's not a wrecked unit yet. So it runs successfully. I don't know why I had a skirmisher there. And I get to keep going with Kellerman. He's gonna, God knows, hit something else. Now he's made his only turn, I think, with this unit, because there's heavy cav in here. So I'll just keep going this way. I was here, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. And I could try countercharging him now with those lights. Yeah, let's see if we can stop him with the lights. Anyway, enough focusing in on the detail. So this is a case where I had to actually look up a rule, because most of it I've come up with my answers for, but this was kind of weird because the Brunswick cav was facing this way, and they retreated and spun around in their retreat. And that predicates whether or not they could make the countercharge. They succeed in their die roll. I find nothing in the rules one way or another that says anything about it, but I had to look that up to make sure that I understood the cav retreat well enough. They made their check. So now we're actually going to do the attack, and I might as well do it since I came back on. This is just a sacrificial attack, really, to stop these guys from hitting 2 units. So the first, let's see, the Prussians are 60. They're going to have their full 2 strength points, and I'm pretty sure Kellerman's down a little bit, 124 and 125, which says, no, he's full 2. Okay, so, I'm sorry, 4 6s is 24, and 21 is 45 for the French, and 3 5s is 15. So I'm attacking at 1 to 3. There's a leader, Kellerman. He gives a -1 for combat. Alright, so the Brunswickians will be disordered, but they do stop the cav, and that's worthwhile. And they do a casualty, and they don't take one themselves. It's kind of interesting. If you disorder somebody with a cav charge, well, with any melee, you're quite often taking the damage, which is why it's important that cav do extra damage, but only to the infantry, I think. I'm not sure if they do to the artillery. That's another one of those things I have to check, but I haven't had cav charging guns very much here. What's wrong there? I rolled a 3. I forgot to take Kellerman into account. He's a -1, and we're attacking heavies with lights. That's another -1. So that actually puts us down to 1. So we take a D1 to a 1. Seeing this is a turn becoming full of charges. First the one over there. Now I had 2 charges coming in from the guard cav, heading up to try to drive the cav up here off. I could have chased down these without a price, but, well, one of them, but then we hit some little woods here, and that's no good. Cav don't like woods. And then I see Grouchy's cav is gonna be engaging over here too. It's got to do with there not being a solid line, with the Prussians moving. As soon as you start moving things around, the cav battle becomes dominating again. I'm learning, which is probably not a good lesson for Napoleonics in general, but for this system, is when routed units go by you, don't charge them. Chances are they're not going to be savable. This guy, he's going to be able to probably run off the map before the Prussians get any chance to turn him around. And given that, well, it's not worth risking because the Cav can take losses when pursuing. It disturbs the hell out of me, actually. There's a lot to do about the retreating off map, routing off map, especially in this big 3-day situation, that just doesn't quite work for me. These units should be able to be recovered. And, I guess the point is my throw together rolls would probably be not much worse than the designer's rolls. So I should just throw some in, but it's too late because I've already had units routing off the map counted against here. So we'll just play it out as it is. But I think if I come back to this again, and in fact, even if I come back to any games in this scenario, in this series that have kind of long battles, I might want to consider disordering units off the map, being able to come back and stuff like that. It's a lot of complexity to try to figure out, though, and easier to do it on a per battle basis. Hey, do I need it here? It's just, I didn't do it ahead of time here. I didn't really think about it too much. To the French half of the turn, and pardon the lighting here. Over here, yeah, it's hard to face into that sun when I'm playing, too. But early morning. Over here, Ney's command has largely taken what they're supposed to. I'm allowing them to expand their frontage over here just to try to undermine this position. I feel that that's vital in taking Cadabra. However, I may have to pull back because, well, I may have to stop advancing is the main thing. Because Ney's army is kind of pooped out. Riel here is taking slight penalties, but they're enough that it's beginning to show. We've got a couple of units. I don't know if this counts. This was a Cav that I think got beaten, but this unit had to make a morale check and failed, for example. And once that starts happening, you start worrying, and I may be pushing too hard. It doesn't mean I'm going to give up my orders, but I'm probably going to stop pushing forward. That flexibility that I like in the system. Over here, the Prussians are just hosed. Von Damme's beginning to create a line. Now, here's the problem. Von Damme is tired, too. He's really tired. That's a -2 to all his morale checks. On the other hand, if these Prussians just keep going, they may be throwing their own lives away, because here comes the Guard. They took Ligny finally, and they're up on the hill. They drove away most of the Prussians from the hill. It looks hopeless. The question, of course, becomes, what chance does Pirch have? Now, the game doesn't handle this, but what chance does Pirch have of being aware of what's going on there enough to say, yeah, I'm going to presuppose not only that I shouldn't keep attacking, which would be fairly reasonable, but that it's time to pull back to Wavre. And the question there is, of course, has Blücher set up something in advance without writing orders or anything where, yeah, we're going to fall back to there if this doesn't work, That'll be what the initiative roll really amounts to. Blücher's going to send orders. Ziethen he can keep in place more or less. He's going to have to fall back a little bit to try to protect the line against the Guard. But he can't really afford to just pull Ziethen out right away either. He may send orders to Ziethen, though. I think Blücher gets 2 orders per turn, so that'll work. Thielmann, oh man, his orders just suck, and he may cancel his as well, just outright, and try to hold this position. The basic thing is, we have to provide a path for this best corps to get out of there in fair condition. Meanwhile, we got a couple of French Guard Cav coming up from behind, and that just looks horrible. But yeah, overall, the Ligny was the main move here, but the French are in a position where they're getting shots in, just random little plinks with the skirmishers over here, and it just does not look good for the Prussians at all on this field. PM, Birch unable to get the initiative, but Blucher's aid is there, so he might end up moving anyway. He does call off his order, though, and pull back a little bit, which, given that Von Damme's not going to be able to get moving, pretty much disengages him. The order system is the one thing that can allow you to disengage, basically, because here I'm disengaging in the face of Girard, and it's turning into a hellish rout. Over here, it doesn't look good for Ziethen's corps, and then, of course, here I have no idea how the Allies are going to extricate themselves. In particular, the Dutch are marching up this way to go join the remnants of Orange's force. There may be other Dutch down here, but they're retreating towards Brussels and Waterloo. Attempts to try to solidify this line a little bit, maybe connect and try to trap the French there, total failure, and just got shot out of there trying to go in there. So it looks pretty damn bad. And you know what? This is about the 1 hour mark, which is where I like to sum things up. So we don't know if the whole campaign's decided. I think it is, but certainly Ligny's over. Quatre-Bras looks impossible as well. And now the real question comes down to the kind of maneuvering with the map jumps and stuff like that, I think. As well as, hey, how's the pursuit of the Prussian army going to work? It's not a matter of simply pursuing with the cav or whatever. It's the Prussians are fairly closely engaged. They're going to get pretty badly hit up. And then I got all these routed units that are probably going to be gone before they can get a chance to roll for rallies. So it looks pretty damn bad. However, you know, we've been fighting for a fair amount of time, actually, and I'm looking at these numbers. These armies seem to have, or these corps seem to have pretty good demoralization levels, in the sense that, I haven't looked at the Ziethen here, I think I counted him up, but he's got 60 to get to. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 19, 22, 23, 32. He's only about halfway to the demoralization. There's not, I don't know if there's 87 points in this army, you know, to hit the desperation level. So these are a really, really sturdy looking corps here. Maybe there's a mistake. Maybe the calculations were incorrect that were put down, but they seem to be across the board very high compared to any of the other armies. I don't know why that would have been chosen, except to allow things to just maul each other.